Hello crafty friends and welcome back, or if you're new here then welcome. My name is Laura and I make all the videos here at Crafty Not Shifty. As you can see from the title and the thumbnail, today we're going to be creating 10 Poundland cozy home DIYs. And I'm giving you a little sneak peek here. If you follow me on Instagram at Crafty Not Shifty, you will have already seen a couple sneak peeks for these, and we're just going to jump right in with the craft. So this first craft is a classic Poundland hack. It is creating a tray using picture frames. I picked up 2 of these picture frames. They may have been 2 for £1. If not, they were £1 each. And I'm going to go ahead and take the back off one of them. I'm going to remove the glass. I don't need that at all. And then I'm going to pull out these little holder pieces that hold the back of the frame in place. You could just bend these back and forwards, but I found that with just a little bit of force, you can pull them out pretty easily. Then I'm going to go ahead and take everything out of this top frame. First of all, I'll break off the back here. So we're going to want a flat base to this tray. So I got rid of that little picture stand and also pulled out the clip from the cardboard insert. Again, it came out real easy. And then I'm going to set everything to one side. I will want to keep the glass and the cardboard for this piece. And then I will go and spray them with the spray paint. So I decided to use a rose gold spray paint, and I love how it looks. I picked up these rose gold kind of handles. I believe they're drawer pulls. I'll have them linked below. And then I printed out a rose gold marble image from my printer, and I'm just cutting that down to size using the insert as a guide. So now it's time to assemble. I'll put the piece of glass in the bottom frame, then the picture. Then I'll flip over and reinsert that cardboard piece. It's actually kind of wooden, I think maybe it's like a thin MDF. And then I'll fold the little clasps in place to hold that. And then I'm going to grab some glue and just run that right along the top. You're probably thinking, why did you spray paint the top of this when you're going to cover it up? But I felt it was easier to just spray paint the whole frame and then not have to worry about what shows. Then I'm going to take that second frame without the glass, without the back piece, and add that on top, and that gives us a little bit of depth inside of this tray, so it will actually hold stuff without it just sliding off the edge. And I lost the footage of me attaching the handles, but I did the exact same thing, just glued them onto the top, and there is DIY number 1. For the second DIY, you're going to need some paper cups. I picked these up, of course, at Poundland. I think there was maybe 8 or 10 in a pack. I picked gold, but the colour really doesn't matter because you won't see it in the end result. And I'm using my scissors to cut somewhat even slits into the cup to create little spokes or spindles. You'll see them when I press the cup down here. And the only thing that you want to do is make sure that you have an odd number. You're then going to take some twine, again, picked it up at Poundland, and I'm going to weave this under and over each of those little spokes. And I've sped this up. I just kept going around, making sure that I kept it really nice and kind of pushed together. I didn't want big gaps in my twine. And you want to keep working with this until you've done enough that there's kind of a somewhat sturdy base there, and you can flip the whole thing over and then press those spokes to kind of turn the cup inside out, I guess. So now the gold is on the inside and all those white edges are kind of pointing upwards. You just want to keep going with this. I sat and did this while I was watching a film, and then once you've got the height that you desire, cut off the excess of the paper cup and use some hot glue just to secure the top of the twine in place, and it looks so stinking cute. I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I think I'm probably going to make some more, maybe make a giant version, and now I just need to plant in it. So I used a couple rocks at the bottom. There aren't any drainage holes, but succulents will do okay without drainage as long as you don't overwater them and you've got a little area at the bottom for water to collect, which is why I put the rocks in the bottom. Then I used some succulent and cactus soil and just planted in some little teeny tiny succulents, and I'm adding some water with a syringe, which is how I like to water these, so they get nice targeted watering at the roots and they don't get too wet. Then I added some decorative tiny river rocks, and that is the second hack complete. So for this third DIY, I keep switching between DIY and hack, I'm sorry. For this third one, again, it is a classic and so easy. You want to pick up 2 hardback books, they're exactly the same, and then flip the dust jacket inside out. These books are actually really pretty without the dust jacket and are really nice and white, so there is a lot of potential for styling these. But I just flipped the dust jacket inside out so it was white. You could also grab some printer paper and wrap it in that, but this is really easy. I taped it in place with some washi tape, so this is all very temporary and I can remove it if I want to. I did the same thing with the other book, and then I'm going to start decorating. I took some burlap ribbon from my stash. I think I originally got this at Hobbycraft. And then I'm adding some tape to that. I do go ahead and add this ribbon, and I decide a little bit later on that I don't like it, but it's here for this next clip, so I wanted to explain where it came from. Then I have some stickers. They do sell alphabet stickers in Poundland, but they didn't have any that went with this kind of rustic vibe that I was going for, kind of more of an autumn and fall. I mean, you can see what I'm spelling out here, it's fall in love, so it's definitely more of an autumn or fall vibe, and the stickers that they had were kind of shiny and bright, and so I just took some from my stash. You could, of course, just handwrite this as well. So I'm replacing out that ribbon with some more twine. You'll see the twine features a lot in this video. And then I took a pine cone. These are in the Christmas section at Poundland for like wreath making and decorating. And I tied one of these, I mean, they come in a pack, it's not one for £1. And I tied one of these using more of the twine around that burlap. And you'll see in the final pictures of this little book DIY, I did go ahead and add some additional fabric. So you can see it there, that kind of buffalo check fabric. You'll find out where that came from a little later on. Okay, number 4, candle holders. I have these little ramekin dishes. I bought 2 packs. I believe they were £1. Poundland has a couple things that are more than £1 now, but I believe these were £1, and I picked up 2 packs, and I also used the epoxy glue. This glue is incredible. You have to mix the 2 parts together. I don't know why I'm only using 1 glove. I really can't explain that. Maybe I was having a Michael Jackson moment. More likely there was only 1 within the reach of my craft desk. So there we go. You should use 2 gloves. And you want to mix it really well together, and it will provide a super strong hold once it takes hold. So I'm just stacking up these little ramekins, kind of, you know, opposite ways. So I've got the open ends stuck together, the closed ends stuck together, and I did 4 of them in a stack and then 2 in a stack. And look how cute they look. It actually looks like a sweet. So I went ahead and spray paint them, add some more burlap and some ribbon, but I really like those as like ceramic sweeties as well, so I might have to pick up some more. Our 5th DIY is probably my favourite. Oh, I love this little mini kitchen scale. I cannot believe how adorable it is for £1. I went ahead and took off the plastic cover. I wanted to scratch away that kitchen scale piece in the middle, but it didn't want to scratch off. So I took some nail varnish remover that contained acetone, and I was able to carefully rub away the printing. I took care not to rub away the actual measurements, but I much preferred this when it didn't have that kitchen scale wording in the centre. I did use some spray paint. I don't know why I don't have any footage of my spray painting, apologies, but I spray paint the scale and also the little basket, I guess, that sits on top of the scale with this grey primer spray paint, and then I brushed some black paint just to kind of highlight the edges and give it more of a distressed look. Speaking of distressed, I took some distress ink and a blender brush and applied that to the face, I'm going to call it the face, I guess, like a clock face, on the background of this scale, just to age it a little and have it look a little bit more grungy. And I cannot believe how good this turned out for something that was brand spanking new, and then with a little bit of paint and a little bit of ink, it is quite the transformation in my opinion, and definitely looks like it would have cost more than £1. So now I've reassembled everything, we need to work on what's going to go in that little measuring basket. I went into my garden and just picked some leaves and random bits and bobs. I also picked up some flowers and a plant that I didn't end up using. And I'm just soaking some floral foam in water that I've cut to size. You don't want to push your floral foam into the water, you just want to let it soak up all that goodness. And then I'm pressing it inside of that little measuring basket that I've spray painted the same colour as the scales. So I'm using some floral tape to hold it in place. And then we can start arranging my flowers and leaves and bits and bobs. So I've sped this up and I've also cut out some of the footage because I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to flower arranging. That ginger streak that you saw in the background maybe just then was my dog Dexter. So there we go. I'm just pressing all of these little pieces in and trying to make something that looks semi-decent. I'm really impressed with how it turned out. I don't have great flower arranging skills, but how fun is this as a DIY? I'm so pleased with it. So number 6, this is a classic DIY. It is a fabric pumpkin. I'm taking some fabric, I guess, but it's from a pack of 2 tea towels for £1 from Poundland, and I've cut a sort of circle shape. You'll notice that this buffalo check is the same fabric that I used underneath the books in an earlier DIY. I just used some of the offcuts from cutting this circle. I have very basic sewing skills, so I ran a really simple running stitch. That's just where you go up and down right around this sort of circle. Added some rice into there and some stuffing, and all you need to do to pull this together is just pull on the thread and it will gather up. For the stem of my pumpkin, I'm using a stick from the garden, and then I'm just pulling on this thread and you can see how it just gathers up around that stem to kind of seal off the top. So now it's time to create the segments for the pumpkin, and you'll notice that I do change out the needle that I'm using here. I did not feel like stabbing myself with a needle, and I definitely would have, so I used a plastic needle, probably designed for children, but here we go, it worked. So I'm just running this around the pumpkin, I'm pulling it up through the top and then down through the bottom, just creating those segments. And I think with how busy the buffalo check pattern is on this tea towel fabric, I probably could have used some of my twine for this rather than the black thread. I think it would have stood out a little bit more, but nevertheless, I am pleased with how this turned out. So here we have some more twine. I told you it features a lot in this video. Nothing says autumn / fall / like farmhouse and cozy to me like twine, so it's everywhere. I tied it around the top of the stem, and then I'm just going to wrap it around a few times and then grab this leaf that I have. It's like a little bark leaf that I got in a card kit that you may have seen me working with on my channel. And I tied that to the twine, and then I'm just going to glue that in place. I must have turned my hot glue gun off at this point. I must not have had it plugged in because I'm using super glue. You could use super glue or hot glue, whatever it is that you have to hand to glue that in place. And I think this looks so cute. I did end up styling this on top of the box, and I think they pair together really well. So for example 7, I have this like noodly bath mat and a pillow insert. I didn't actually get this bath mat from Poundland, but I have seen that they sell them there. And I'm going to cheat and use hot glue to seal this up around my pillow insert. I cannot stress enough to be careful if you use hot glue. I'm also using pegs to hold this in place, but the important part of this story, I burnt myself really, really bad. So don't be lazy and sew it, or be really careful if you're working with hot glue, or use fabric glue. There's some tips from me to you. If you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen on my Instagram stories my burnt thumb. This is where it came from, but look how cute that pillow is, and look how perfect it looks in my tub chair. Okay, number 8. This is another favourite. They're all my favourite. They always are, but let me know in the comments which one's your favourite. Here I have some popsicle sticks or lolly sticks if you're English like I am. I don't know why I said popsicle first. I'm going to make some coasters, and I've laid them out in this little design. So I've got 3 facing upwards, and then I'll do 3 that I'll glue on top, kind of stood upright on the narrow end. And I use some washi tape to hold this down in place, and I'm using the grid lines on my mat to make sure everything's all squared up. Those little pink things on my fingers are silicone finger protectors. Refer to the last craft where I burnt my thumb. I was trying to be more cautious. So then I'm going to take these sticks and lay them on top. I did 1 at each end, 1 in the middle, and then filled in the gaps with 2 either side of the middle. And the great thing about this is that pallets are usually uneven, maybe slightly wonky, maybe misspaced, so you don't have to get this perfect and it will look great. So you could stop there, but I flipped it over and decided to add 3 more in kind of that vertical format. If I was sensible, I would have painted everything first, but I didn't think, so it was a little more difficult to get the paintbrush in there, but I think it makes the perfect mini palette. I love it. So I went ahead and created 4 of these and then sanded down the sides of the palettes. The sanding blocks again came from Poundland. And then I think this goes from like DIY to like chic, something that you could have bought when you add the wood stain. I just used a little sample pot and stained all 4 palettes, and again, love how they turned out. Number 9, we have a pumpkin spice sign using one of these Poundland chopping boards. I'm using the same stain as in the last craft project, and I stained the whole board, and again, it just takes it from like something you can get at Poundland to something that looks a little more expensive with that wood stain, and you can use a much darker stain if you want. Once the stain was dry, I added white acrylic paint and just dry brushed that all over the board. I also ordered a espresso. I ordered an espresso deliberately to get a tiny takeaway cup for this project. You'll see in just a minute why I did that. So I painted the lid white and then I mixed up an orange colour. I wanted it to be sort of a darker orange, so I did add some brown in there because I wanted it to have that kind of pumpkin spice vibe to it. I took a wooden heart from my stash, I don't remember where I got this from, and painted it white. And then I'm using a paint pen to write out the word pumpkin, spice, and then season. Full disclosure, I definitely traced this out in pencil first, and I'm working really slow. I still managed to make a couple errors with my black paint pen, and I'm trying to correct them with a white paint pen. It's not perfect. The N in the word season kind of bothers me a little bit, but it's homemade and I still think it looks pretty good. So I cut the coffee cup in half, and then I'm adding some corrugated cardboard from some packaging. I'm just using my glue gun. I've forgiven it for the thumb burn. It was my own fault. And I'm going to go ahead and stick that across the middle of this cup so it has that kind of takeaway cup vibe, and it will also give me a place to hold in this stuffing that I've added while you weren't looking. I added that just so the whole thing won't kind of smush down if it gets knocked. I always worry about that when I'm creating these kind of DIYs, so I like to add a little bit of filling. Then I'm going to go ahead and glue the whole thing in place, and again that cardboard just gives me somewhere else to add some glue for this whole thing to stick to the chopping board. I really love how this one turned out, and I'm very tempted to make a Christmas version with like the iconic red Christmas takeaway coffee cups. Anyway, I'll glue down the heart. And then it's been a while since I've said the word twine, so here we go. Let's grab the hot glue gun and add some twine to the handle. I'm just going to stick that down and then wrap it round, and that will be this sign finished. I could have added the photo frame kind of kickstand from the first DIY to the back of this, but I'd already thrown it out. So to make sure it would stand up on its own, I actually propped it on a tiny easel. So DIY number 10, we're going to make a heart pillow. So this is the other tea towel that came in the 2-pack, and I folded it in half and then in half again, so in quarters if we want to be, you know, correct about these things. And then I'm cutting out a heart shape, or at least attempting to. I didn't quite like how it looked at the top there, so I just trimmed away a little more till it was what I felt like was a cuter heart shape. And when I open it up, it is the full heart, and I've got 2 pieces that I clip together using these mini sewing clips. And then I actually used my sewing machine for this. I attempted to run a seam all the way around as best I could. Again, you know, sewing skills, not great, but there we go. And then I flipped the whole thing inside out and started to add some stuffing. This stuffing is actually from an old pillow that I just kept the stuffing from the inside. So that is a great way to save some money with these kinds of DIYs. Just keep your old stuffing from old pillows. So then I turned in the edges of that gap that we used to flip this whole thing around, and I'm doing my very basic sewing, essentially just wiggling the needle back and forth so it catches the fabric on either side and pulling it through and sealing up that gap. And then that is my 10th DIY. I love how cute this little pillow is, and I think it looks great sat on the tub chair in front of the bath mat noodle pillow. So now we have like a cheeky little bonus hack for putting dried flowers or fresh flowers in a vase. I decided to use pampas grass. It's in my garden from, when we bought the house. I just cut some and peeled away these leafy green stems and hung it up in my garage to dry for about a week. And sorry, it's a mess. And you'll see when you put it in the vase, it kind of flops around. It doesn't hold its shape, but if you add a little bit of stuffing to the bottom of the vase and then create a grid using sellotape or washi tape, you can just stand everything inside of that grid. Oh, it looks so much better. So that's a little bonus hack for you. Here I will run through my little cozy corner with all of the DIYs. I'll also have a link in the description below to the dried wheat that's in the jug in the background. And I just love how this turned out. I'm really, really pleased. This is actually my last video before I switch over to kind of Christmas-based content, so I thought I'd end on something a little more autumnal and cozy for those that aren't quite ready to embrace the chaos of Christmas and Christmas decorating. I would love to know which of these is your favourite, and if you recreate any of these DIYs, then you can tag me at CraftyNotShifty on pretty much all the social medias. I'll have links below. Thank you so much for joining me today. On screen right now are a couple more videos that I think you might enjoy. If you haven't already subscribed, you can tap on the logo to subscribe, and don't forget to ring the bell if you want to be notified whenever I post a new video. That's all from me today. I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.